From the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C.
Hello everyone, and welcome to our panel on artists' rights and the digital marketplace. The goal of our panel tonight is to facilitate a conversation about artists' rights and about some of the issues surrounding getting paid for our work in the digital marketplace. We've assembled an excellent panel of music professionals who will share their different perspectives on the issues, and after hearing from them, we look forward to hearing from you about your questions and concerns. So we have some heavy hitters with us tonight. I'm going to tell you a little bit about who's here on our panel. Maria Schneider, who's doing her week-long jazz residency here at LC, is a world-renowned composer and leader of the Maria Schneider Orchestra. She's received 5 Grammy Awards for her recordings, the most recent 2 being Best Arrangement, Instruments and Vocals for her collaboration with the late, great David Bowie on the single called Sue or In a Season of Crime, and Best Large Jazz Ensemble Album for her latest work, The Thompson Fields. In addition to being an accomplished artist, Maria is a very successful entrepreneur whose 2004 album Concert in the Garden became historic as the first recording to win a Grammy with internet-only sales. And that album also pioneered the crowdfunding boom as the first album ever released on the Artist Share platform. Maria is also a passionate voice for music advocacy, as you're going to hear tonight. Having testified before Congress about digital rights, appeared on CNN, and being quoted in numerous publications for her views on digital rights and music piracy. Most recently, she and concerned colleagues in New York have launched a widespread campaign on behalf of music makers, musicanswers.org, and you're going to be hearing more about musicanswers.org very soon. To my right, John Simson here is executive in residence at the Kogod School of Business at American University here in Washington, D.C. He started out in the music biz in 1971 as a recording artist and songwriter. Since then, John's career has included stints as a manager, handling the career of 5-time Grammy winner Mary Chapin Carpenter, special advisor to Harry Belafonte for music and TV projects, and a 30-year career as an entertainment lawyer advising clients on copyright and business issues in film, television, music, and the visual arts. John was at the forefront of the battle for the artist's right to be paid in the digital era. From 2001 to 2010, he served as the founding executive director of Sound Exchange, an organization he helped launch to collect royalties from internet and satellite radio services on behalf of recording artists and record labels. Sound Exchange has now distributed over $2 billion to artists and labels since it began.
If I'd only had stock options.
John is currently president of the Music and Entertainment Industry Educators Association, and he also serves on our National Recording Preservation Board here at the Library of Congress. So we see him a lot. Spree Wilson, in the middle there, is a singer-songwriter who was born in Nashville, Tennessee, and attended Clark University in Atlanta, Georgia, where he met one of his mentors, Dallas Austin. Dallas was impressed by Spree's guitar skills and offered him an internship at his famous studio, Dart, as well as offering him a recording contract. Spree turned down the recording contract, sold his car, and bought a one-way ticket to New York City, arriving with just a suitcase and a guitar. Being in the Big Apple led to his meeting with his other mentor, rapper-producer Q-Tip, who helped land Spree a major label deal with Jive Records and ultimately a publishing deal with Universal Music Group. And since then, Spree has co-written Afrojack's single, The Spark, which I looked at today and realized that you've got almost 35 million views for The Spark, which has been A-listed on BBC's Radio 1. In addition, he's co-written Sin City on Good Music compilation album Cruel Summer with Teyana Taylor. The album went #1 on the U.S. top R&B hip-hop albums, U.S. top rap albums, and #2 on U.S. Billboard 200. In addition to Q-Tip, Spree has collaborated with other noteworthy producers such as Navo, No ID, Jim Johnson, Infamous, Malay, Robin Hannibal, Frequency, and Mark Maxwell. Please welcome our panelists tonight. Even though we're living in a time when brick and mortar record stores have all but disappeared, the good news is, in the digital realm, it's never been easier to share our music. But the bad news is also it's never been easier to share our music. And millions are helping themselves to it and expecting it for free. So we need to have strategies to protect our music and to get paid for it. So my first question to our panelists is, and I'm going to address this to Spree first, as we've transitioned from a purchase model where people pay to buy downloads and physical CDs, we've transitioned to an access model where consumers can stream almost anything they want on demand. What, if anything, about that is working and what is not working? And what's the financial reality that you're living with as an artist?
Well, I think you have to first ask yourself, like, what is that you're looking for, you're hoping for as an artist, you know? I mean, the general, most basic thing that you want as a creative is just to be heard. You want to be seen, you want your art to at least mean something to one person. So these streaming companies and like Spotify and Apple Music and things like YouTube, they help you get your music and your art out there. They give you access to people in a bigger abundance of, you know, you can cast a wider net rather than 20, 30 years ago, like you have to perform in a club and hope like more than 5 people show up, you know?
Right.
So yeah, that's a positive aspect, you know? The downside is that there's no transparency, right? Like I put my music on Spotify, there's music on YouTube, it racks up a total of, I don't know, 30 million views. 35 million views. I have a song that's 45 million on Spotify right now. But I have no idea what that equals because Spotify, in a sense, they get to make up their own numbers, right? Mm-hmm. They get to say, well, we're gonna pay you .04 for your song. Now, where do you get that number though? Like how can you equate, how can you, like what is the equation that you put this price tag on this piece of art? And then they've said, well, on top of that, you know, if your song is through a major label or you've collaborated with somebody who's signed to a major publishing company, what we're gonna do is we're gonna have this lump sum of money and we're gonna pay them. Now, we're not gonna tell you how much we're paying them. Just know that we're paying them 70% of whatever we're making, whatever that number is, right? So they give this big pile of money to the labels. And the labels say, well, we're doling out the money as best we can. How much money is it though? You just don't know. And so it's just this thing of non-transparency that gets passed around and all this red tape you have to go through of like, how much does 45 million streams on Spotify equal money-wise?
How much does it translate into?
And you just never know. Like you just never know if you're getting the right amount of money. I mean, for example, like just to put my own personal business out there, the song she's referring to, The Spark, on Spotify it has 45 million streams. It's Afrojack's second highest streamed song on Spotify, right? Every quarter it probably is streamed at least 1 million times, which a quarter is 3 months. When I get a royalty statement, they pay in 4 quarters. So every 3 months, I get a royalty statement. The highest I've ever been paid on Spotify for 1 million streams is $60. If that gives you any idea of what a high stream song will pay you.
And John, what?
Now, to be clear, that's you being paid as a songwriter,
right,
not
right.
as the artist. The
Right.
artist actually gets paid a little bit more.
A little bit more,
Yeah,
but
it's a little bit better.
But it's
So you can eat at a nice restaurant as opposed to taking your friend to a diner or something.
No, I'll go through some of those numbers in a little bit. because I've spent my life since running Sound Exchange looking at those numbers, and they're pretty pitiful.
Yeah.
We throw around terms like ARPU, average revenue per user, or annual revenue per user. How much does each user of a service like Spotify generate? And obviously the problem is there are some people paying $9.99 a month. If you're paying $10 a month for Spotify, that's $120 a year that you're paying for music. That's not bad. If 60% of that is being transferred over to the label and the artist to share, $72, you can sit there, and 10%, typically it's 10.5%, gets transferred to the songwriter and the publisher. So they're going to make $12.60 if you're the songwriter and publisher. But remember, it's the more people stream, the lower your rate gets, because the more they have to pay out for the $10 a month that you're paying. So they love people who subscribe and then don't use it. It's kind of like breakage, but most people use a lot. I can tell you in the first 5 years of Sound Exchange, we logged in 7 billion performances. And again, it's before Pandora, before some of the major streaming services existed. 2001 to 2006, 7 billion performances.
From which locations on the internet, so everybody
These are all
understands?
streaming music, so they'd have to be non-interactive streaming, like college radio stations. AOL had a streaming service, CBS, all the broadcasters who stream online.
Can you explain the difference between interactive and non-interactive?
Sure. A non-interactive service is like Pandora, where you can't pick the song you want when you want it. You can go to Pandora and say, I want to hear Taylor Swift. And they'll play you a Taylor Swift song, and then they'll play you a lot of other songs that they think you'll want to hear. It's more like a radio station. You can't specifically say, in fact, the worst thing to do is say, I want to hear this song by Taylor Swift, because then they can't play you that song. They're not allowed to play you the song that you asked for, because they get a compulsory license from the government. So they can play anything they want. Taylor Swift cannot take her music off Pandora. She can take it off Spotify. She can take it off any of the interactive services, because in the interactive world, where you can demand the song you want when you want it, artists have the right to say no. It's usually their label that has the right to say no. But there is some control there, which is why you see an artist like Drake saying, oh, I'm going to give an exclusive to Apple Music, or you see an artist like Kanye saying, I'm giving an exclusive to Tidal Music. So artists can have those kinds of exclusive relationships in the on-demand world. In the Pandora world, or when broadcasters stream online, called simulcasting, so iHeartRadio, where you hear Clear Channel stations streamed online, or Bonneville or CBS, any of the big radio conglomerates, when they stream online, they have a compulsory license given to them by the government. And basically what it says is you can stream whatever you want. Anything publicly released in the United States is fair game. All you have to do is pay the royalty rate set by the Copyright Royalty Board that's located here in the Library of Congress. And you have to give the data to Sound Exchange of what you played, so they know who to pay. Mm-hmm. So non-interactive is very easy. It's kind of a plug and play. You basically can start streaming tomorrow and no one can sue you. You have to get about 4 licenses to do that. And they're licenses that people have to give you. So it's a very easy situation. Spotify and on-demand services, much more difficult. So for example, when Spotify needs to stream music, they have to negotiate a license with every single owner of the master recordings, whoever owns those recordings, typically record labels, which is why the major labels, in order to let Spotify exist, took 20% equity in Spotify. So the major record labels are investors in Spotify, or they have equity. They're waiting for the IPO.
And now SoundCloud.
Yeah, and this is the case with pretty much any service that needs those massive catalogs of recordings that are owned by Universal, Warner, and Sony, that they can demand equity to allow these services to stream on demand. Think of Spotify and Apple and Tidal and these services that serve you up records when you ask for them. They're the replacement for record stores, right? Because you're getting to hear exactly what you want when you want to hear it. Obviously, there are some holdbacks. Adele didn't put her record on Spotify or on streaming services. And there's a big battle going on, too, between paid services. You don't get Apple unless you pay for it. You don't get Tidal unless you pay for it. You might have a free trial for a very limited period of time, but you have to pay. Spotify has the free tier, which is the overwhelming tier, 600 million unique users, versus the paid tier where there's about 30 million worldwide users. So you can see 20 to 1. Pandora the same way. They have a ad-supported service. Most of their users are on the ad-supported free service where they don't pay anything. It's kind of like the old radio model. You listen to ads and you get music. But it's interesting, you pay $4 a month to get rid of the ads. Very few people do. They're willing to take the 2 minutes of ads. I kept yelling at Pandora, you need 10 minutes of ads, because that way musicians actually can make a living. More people will buy the ad-free because they don't want to listen to 10 minutes of ads. And it's very interesting. The free service of Pandora generates last year about $1 billion, 1.1 billion. 81 million users, if you do the math. They earned about $13, $14 per person per year, right? Over-the-air radio, the clear channels of the world that you listen to when you're in your car, with their 10 minutes of advertising, they earn $71 per person per year. I already mentioned Spotify, if you're paying for it, $120 per person per year. Satellite radio at $15, Sirius XM, $150 to $160 per person per year. So you can see that subscription isn't a bad thing if people are actually paying.
Right.
It can generate a livable wage if people are paying. If people are not paying, it's really, really difficult. And YouTube is the worst because YouTube, with over 1 billion users, generated less than 4% of the industry's revenue last year in royalties. So that's the real problem.
Speaking of a living wage, what would Spree's career look like in the old days of record stores? I mean, compared to the $60 he makes from
Well-
massive numbers of people streaming his music, what would his career look like in the old days?
Well,
with
I
this
think
many people listening to his music.
Yeah, the hard part is translating listens into sales, but for example, I think the way to look at it would be, if he had 45 million listens on the radio, how much would ASCAP or BMI have sent him, right? And you know, again, the rates online have been horribly low, partially because of radio, ASCAP and BMI were locked into very low rates with traditional media, and so when they went online, they continue to get very low rates, kind of mirroring what they were getting at radio. And online music is not really like radio. It's much more personalized. It's a much more interesting listening experience, and so it's capturing more and more listening hours, and yet not paying out what it should. And by contrast, SoundExchange we didn't have a radio right in the United States for recording artists. That's another problem that we can talk about another time. The hundreds of millions of dollars that US artists lose because radio stations don't have to pay them anything. But because we didn't have a 3%, 4% legacy radio rate, we're getting 50% of Pandora revenue, whereas songwriters are getting 4 or 5%. So the artists are getting 10 times as much as songwriters, and that's not fair, frankly. Songwriters should be getting far more. These services need to monetize better.
If you don't want it on YouTube, you can ask them to take it down. There's a way to. It's torturous.
It's like.
And I wanted to turn it over to Maria to talk about the takedown.
Well, there's so many things to talk about here. It's incredible. Well, one thing just before I go into that I'd like to talk about, because to me one of the most eroded royalties and rights that I feel is very frustrating. It's been around since the piano roll, and that's the mechanical royalty. When something is fixed onto a record, onto a CD, onto a download, onto a device where you can play it, there is a statutory rate, approximately 9 cents a song, that was always figured into the cost of making a record, right? And now we know, Spree and I were just talking today about the fact that there are all sorts of apps out there now that you can rip an MP3 off of any video in a matter of seconds and have it. And if you can listen to it again on demand, again and again, we know that this is a replacement for buying that music. We know that because people are not buying music as much anymore. So if I think about your 45 million plays, and what I believe should be happening, because to me, what really angers me about the whole business is that people are not looking at the music, maybe because it's not fixed in form as an asset. I mean, it used to be in Tower Records, they would put, Marshall Jilks in my band, he was just pointing out, he said, remember in Tower where they put that plastic thing around so you couldn't steal the CD, right? They wrapped a thing of plastic around this that had to be taken off when you purchased it. So when it was in physical form, somehow we all looked at it that way. Now that it's in digital form, we aren't looking at it that way. And so people aren't looking at it as something that costs money, is of value. When I made my record, The Thompson Fields, it was $200,000 to make that record. Pay the players, the engineers, the everything, the hours of mixing. A year of my time, and I did not include myself in that budget. Then I haven't included the years writing that music, preparing that music. This is a $400,000 investment, okay? So when my music is played, I somewhere or is distributed in some kind of way, I want to set my own price point because I know the cost of that. And if my music, I would never put my music on Spotify. You could sooner roll me over in a whatever. But say my music was on something like that, you can bet I wouldn't want somebody basing the mechanical royalty on a percentage of what that company tells me their profits are. So that's how they're figuring out these mechanical royalties. It's a percentage of their net profit. And the value of a big data company is a very difficult thing to value because their value is something that grows and grows. We know what's the value of Google. Google, it's all that data, it's all that power. It's not just the advertising, it's the data analytics. It's the capability that they know, that this person who listens to this music, all the things that crawl around your devices, that know everything that you do. The data lords that's the name of the piece I've written for the Library of Congress. Data lords are taking appropriately are just taking all this information and becoming hugely powerful. So to me, each unique listen, if somebody listens to more than a half of your song, they can listen then 1,000 times, I don't care. But that first time they listen full time through, or let's say 2 times. Let's be generous to the new internet generation. I believe that person automatically, boom, should have to pay that 9-cent mechanical to you. And imagine how huge that would be. I don't know how many unique, do you know how many unique listeners you have?
That's what I was looking into.
Well, okay, so let's just say it's 4.5 million.
Right.
So, if it's 4.5 million and it's 9 cents, what is that?
It's a little under $450,000.
And there's a $500,000 almost in his pocket for his mechanicals. And you know what? With the kind of views you have, that you should be buying an apartment. I'm sorry, really. So anyway, so the mechanical royalty erosion is the first thing that has just made me crazy. If you look at these big data companies and what they're doing, and right now the Office of Copyrights is doing a study on safe harbor provisions, and these companies like YouTube and Google and all the internet companies. So in 1998 they created something called the DMCA, which is the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. It was designed to protect these ISPs, this is before Napster, before all these things, these ISPs that were basically pipelines for information coming through. And they didn't really know, AOL, Verizon, I don't know, they didn't really know exactly what was coming through their pipeline. So they said, well, we don't want to be liable, we can't be liable when we don't even know what's coming through the pipe. So they said, okay, so you get safe harbor. But then they created this takedown. I don't know when the takedown was created.
It is part of the negotiation in 512.
Part of the negotiation is that people who were being infringed, if their work was being infringed, they could file a takedown. So these companies had to have some place where that person had the capability to go up and file this takedown notice. The problem is now with these new companies, look at YouTube. This is a modern day wholesale publishing company. they are inducing. You know, there was a case between Viacom and YouTube, because Viacom said, you know, they're letting our music come up. They shouldn't be getting safe harbor. And it went to court. They lost, but then Viacom appealed. And then the judge looked at it and said, there's some interesting facts here. I think we're going to send this down to the trial court again and take a look at this. And there were employees at YouTube that indicated that they had instigated and induced this infringement, which they are not allowed to do. And that was what the court was trying to decide, is are these companies aiding and abetting this infringement? The answer is without question, yes. All you have to do is go to YouTube and upload something. You upload in 2 seconds flat, no questions asked. Nobody says, do you own this? Or so I can show them in a little while. I've brought up some kind of interesting things on YouTube. For instance, you can cue in or search no infringement intended. I don't know, this is, let's see what happens here if we do that. Does this come up? Okay. Let me just see if I can find it easily and quickly. No infringement intended.
On the E.
On the E, thank you. There we go. You know what, can you do this for me? Because you're gonna, or no copyright infringement intended. 659,000 people have uploaded stuff, and it says no copyright infringement intended. I just really want to share this band, you know? And then these things get like millions of views. So YouTube, I mean, they know this stuff is there. And so if you want to take it down immediately, so there's no warning that says when you put it up, exclamation point, if you don't own this music, or you didn't write the music, or you haven't gotten permission, you could be in a lot of trouble. But if you want to take your music down, there's a big yellow thing with an exclamation point, and under penalty of perjury, you better not be, you know, taking down something that isn't yours, otherwise you could be in a lot of trouble. And there's question after question. It's honest to God, it's incredible. And clearly they want people to be able to put this stuff up. There are people, this week there was a situation where I was digging around. It's fun to dig around YouTube and just see how egregious some of this stuff is. So I happened to see a site with just tons of independent jazz musicians. I'm a jazz musician, so I know all these people. So a guy in my band, you know, he had several albums that were uploaded on some young guy's YouTube channel, hundreds of records. So I spoke to Clarence. Clarence said, oh my God, you know, that's crazy. So the guy ended up, he contacted this guy. He ended up taking his whole site down because I think he got freaked out, his whole YouTube channel. And I found the teacher of this person because he was a young guy, and I said, I want to talk to him and find out some things from him. And I said, I promise I won't use your name. I won't tell anybody about you. I just want to find out some facts. Because there were ads on all these. They were all full albums. They were full albums. They all had a string of ads on them. And he had, I think it was 3.5 million views. Okay? Mm-hmm. So if you look on YouTube, what they charge for an ad, between 10 and 30 cents. Mm-hmm. So imagine what they're bringing, you know, in. So let's say it's only one ad on each one for 10 cents. 3.0 million, that's how much?
Yeah, typically YouTube's been paying out about $2,000 per million views. And I think some of the major companies may get a little bit higher rate. But
wait,
YouTube
$2
keeps
million what? Or what?
$2,000 per million views. So it's incredibly low.
It's incredible.
But in other words,
what are they taking? But
they won't tell you how much they're making.
Well, what was
They'll only tell
interesting
you how much
about
they'll
this
pay
kid,
you.
I said, I promise I won't tell anybody. What are you making on those ads? He said, I didn't make anything. YouTube generated those ads. It came on their own. Yeah. He said, I don't know where the money was going. And he said, I presume because they did that and a lot of this stuff was somewhere else on YouTube, it was okay. So see, this whole thing is serving YouTube. It's just, it's taking what's ours and taking it away. And trying to make us feel like it's doing something good for us, and it is not.
And also, a lot of the kids, like the one she's referring to, they don't really know that they're doing anything wrong. You know, they have no idea what they're doing. They're uploading music, and you know, we talked about this specific situation. You know, this kid thinks that ad money is going to the artist. You know, meanwhile, her friend doesn't even know his music is on YouTube.
Yeah.
He's looking at like, why is my whole album on YouTube? And so it's this whole thing of like, where, like, it brings me back to my first question. Where is the money?
Yeah.
Who has the money? Like, it's
I'll tell you who has it. You know what it is? It's a redistribution of wealth. That's what it is. It's by big data companies. They use music, and this is my beef with Sony, Universal, and Warner, and Spotify. So, too, it's like a feeding frenzy here. Everybody panicked what to do, you know, when things started to go south with the internet and file sharing. And and I had the perfect solution, and I am still doing it, and it's great, through ArtistShare, which I'll explain later, which is basically about self-ownership and selling directly to the fan and knowing who the fan is and owning my own data. But what these companies did is they realized, on the internet, how do we get eyeballs so that we can amass data so that we can sell advertising? We give them entertainment, we give them music, we give them movies, we give them all these things just to attract eyeballs. And so how do you get more eyeballs? You make that music free. And YouTube somehow tried to, when I testified before Congress, I was next to one of the general counsels of YouTube, and she had I just couldn't even believe I heard her talking about one woman who, you know, had 1 million+ views, and it really helped her career, and it was really wonderful, and it really worked for her, as if this is doing us a favor. I said, I said, maybe this woman, it was a success for her in some way. Maybe she was a songwriter that was actually a performer. Let's not forget that a lot of songwriters are not performers. Mm-hmm. So I said, that's like going into a poverty-stricken neighborhood, finding one person that wins the lottery and calling it,
exception.
This is a great sustainable economic model. Look at this person, what they've achieved. You can all hope for this, you know? I was like, oh, please, you know? So anyway, so what happened is Spotify needed music, right? They want to be this big data company. Daniel Ek wants to be the answer to piracy. I mean, honestly, you know, to me, he's the pirate in sheep's clothing, you know? So what did they do to get all that music? Because they couldn't really get the library, they gave the equity to Sony, Universal, and Warner. Mm-hmm. And Sony, Universal, and Warner did it. Nobody really knew about it. It was money that now one of them, I think it was Warner, said somehow, you know, since everybody's been really making a hullabaloo about this, they're like, we'll distribute it. How do you distribute it? Somebody dies, you're going to go back, find this is someday when their equity comes through. It's utterly ridiculous. And so these companies now that represent these artists through their contracts, and maybe this is a harsh way to say it, but I'm going to use a harsh analogy. I feel like a lot of these artists, it's almost now, because these companies, they're now big data companies. They're no longer music companies. They have equity. They're in the business of making music free so that their equity can go up and that they can, you know, make money in other ways. And so these musicians that are tied to these people, it's like being chain gang to working, you know, I'm doing my music so that they can sell it for free or give it away for free and become more valuable by it. It's completely wrong. If I had one wish, it would be that artists could, if there was a way to say, you have broken our fiduciary trust, you represented me as an artist, as a publisher, at my financial interest, and you sold me down the river, I want out. Because, you know, how many musicians had contracts that foresaw in them these other ways of distributing music? I mean, you can say that you're a lawyer. What kind of...
Oh, no, I mean, there's been a huge issue in the music industry over the last decade because of the way music's distributed. And one of the big cases actually was brought by Eminem's production company, FBT versus Aftermath, Dr. Dre's label, when songs were being sold on iTunes for 99 cents. You know, the record company would say, oh, we're selling a single. It's just like the way we used to sell singles, and so you get 12% of $1. So here's your 12 cents. They'd pay 9.1 cents to the publisher for the mechanical. That's 21.1 cents. And they'd keep the rest of the money that iTunes would pay them around. iTunes, out of the 99 cents, would keep about a quarter. So there'd be about another 50 cents the record company would pocket. So Eminem's producer said, no, you're not selling anymore. You're licensing Apple the music. And when you went in to look at the contracts, most artist contracts say if you sell it, it's 12%, but if you license it, we get half. So all of a sudden, the record labels had to pay half of the money to all of these legacy artists from the 70s. The Allman Brothers sued. There was a big Warner settlement. There was a big Universal settlement. There was a big Sony settlement. So that was great. That was a great windfall for all the legacy artists because their contracts didn't say anything. Right. Starting in 2003, now that we knew iTunes was the way we were selling music, in those contracts going forward, it says when we sell through iTunes, it's a sale, it's not a license. So they've protected themselves going forward. I actually think, Maria, that the labels taking equity, there's definitely a cynical view, and I don't know that they ever planned to share it with the artists, the fact that they were using these vast catalogs of artist music to get the equity share. And now they've had to come forward and say, oh, we'll share this, with the artists, if there's ever an IPO. No, all three, I think, have now. Yeah, they've all come forward. But I actually think it was the record companies finally having that aha moment. So they had the opportunity to own MTV, and they didn't. They had the opportunity to own SoundScan, which creates data about sales, and didn't. You think about the Victrola. You think about all the technology that delivers music to consumers where all the money's made. Right? It's not, the creators have always been screwed. It's always been the hardware companies that have made the money. It's always been, Sony was an electronics company, and because Betamax lost out to VHS, they bought a movie studio. We're not going to lose this next time. We'll have our own content. So I think it was really them strategically thinking, we're going to now take equity in all these new startups. We don't know which ones are going to succeed, but if they do succeed, we're going to be in for it.
Do you think it was from the Napster days of we didn't buy into the whole Napster thing and we missed out on that?
Well, the Napster thing is kind of interesting. As an aside, I was actually subpoenaed in the Napster lawsuit, but that's another story for another day. Shortest deposition in history. But I was actually starting Sound Exchange out of the back of the RIAA when that was all going on. And the RIAA actually reached out to Napster and said, you guys need a license. We should negotiate.
Let's spell out the acronyms. Recording Industry Association of America.
Representing the major
RIA.
labels and some major indies. And this is back in 1999, 2000 when Napster started with file sharing. And they tried to license them. And basically the answer was, we don't need licenses, this is fair use. And finally, Napster got sued and they lost in the Ninth Circuit and ended up getting shut down. What's kind of ironic is that's 1999, 2000, and now we have Spotify, which is basically a Napster with licenses.
Right.
Right? And it only took us 10 years to get there and lots of losses to piracy in the intervening years. And I think there have been band-aids along the way. The iTunes download store was a wonderful thing for a while. People wanted to buy the one track, not the whole album. Okay, we'll let you do that. And that was in response to Napster. It was the record companies trying to do something proactively. If you think about CD stores, back when we had those, like Tower and HMV, and they weren't really interested in selling CD singles, because you think about the profit margin on a CD single selling for $2.99, taking up the same amount of shelf space in a record store as the full CD, right? So there was no business in selling singles. When I was managing artists, we had 45s, right? Then we had singles. You probably don't. I don't know if any of you have those.
Maxi singles.
And then the maxi single. If you're in the dance, the 12-inch.
Can I just say something? Yeah. Because I know Taylor Swift came out and said this. Said people are willing to buy music First of all, I'll tell you through my website, because I have all my data, I see every sale that comes in. The vast majority of people are buying my CD, okay? And people are willing to buy music. People are willing to pay for downloads, and they were. It's just if it's made available for free, who doesn't use that? You know, so this is not a matter of what people want. It's a matter of what large companies have made people think that they want and need. Of course, everybody takes free if they get it at everybody's expense except their own. And it's a dangerous thing for us to not be awake to that. Yeah. And I really, so right now, the Copyright Office is doing a wonderful thing, and they're taking in, they've just closed it now, in comments about the safe harbor. And a lot of people, I wrote in, a lot of organizations, I know Music Answers wrote in, our RIAA.
Thousands of artists.
Thousands of artists have written in basically saying, you know, and I think the argument needs to be made, definitely, that, you know, these companies are purposely setting this up and trying to create a culture of infringement for their own good. And
you know, if I can just add to that, when you were talking about the safe harbor, this is the section 512 of the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, where you send a notice and the person running the service has to take it down, or they can be held liable for infringement. And again, remember, it was written during a time of dial-up. It was written during Netscape. It was written during AOL. We didn't have services like Google and YouTube, which are content delivery systems. This was really meant for dumb pipes. That was the expression that was used back in the day. So here's the thing that always infuriated me. You send a takedown notice for a particular piece of content that you own, and they take it down. They abide by the law. A minute later, a new person puts the same content up. They don't have to filter and go, oh wait, we already took that down, someone shouldn't be able to put that back up. They just put it back up. It's like whack-a-mole. And then you've got to send them another takedown notice. Now, if you're the major labels and you have a whole department that's all you do, sending tens of millions, hundreds of millions of takedown notices every month, you're okay. But if you're an independent artist, you can't afford to do that. You don't have the resource to do it. There have been some independent filmmakers, you know, who've made these independent films on their credit cards only to see it being distributed for free because they can't get it taken down. And you know, the other thing you were talking about, how they try to threaten you when you're taking something down. You better have the right to take this down or we're going to come after you.
And now YouTube has just started a program that if somebody takes, so let's not mind the fact that, you know, probably 99.99% of takedown notices are definitely authorized, but every once in a while somebody does a malicious takedown on somebody or whatever. So YouTube has started saying that they will pay up to $1 million in attorney's fees to defend some of their users who have something taken down that they feel is wrongly taken down. Never mind, are they going to pay, you know, $1 million of my time and effort? I want to, can I show you something that just came out? This is pretty wonderful because, so the YouTube takedown thing is frustrating. The Google takedown thing is impossible. And Google, so I mean, let's make no mistake, Google and YouTube equal Alphabet, which is, you know, is the big, you know, the data lord empire. But Google is creating searches to many of these sites, some that are foreign that don't have to adhere to the DMCA, many that are torrent sites where you send in your DMCA thing and they say, oh, we can't help it, it's server to server and we can't do anything. You know, in the meantime, they have my entire sets of scores and parts and videos that go with it that are worth $115 on my website. So this man just put out this thing about how to send a takedown notice to Google in 46 steps or more easy steps. So let's get started. Go to google.com, look for the word copyright at the bottom of the page. Nope. Look for the word legal. Nope. Look for the link contact or contact us. Nope. No. Link on about. Nope, that's not it. Link on the terms. Scroll down. Aha, privacy and copyright protection. Now we're on our way. Click on the link for Help Center. Click on the link for Submit a Legal Request, okay? Read the drop-down menu. Click the link for the word tool. Read a set of 12 choices. Select web search. Read a list of 8 choices. None of the choices mention the word copyright. Really? You invite me to submit a legal request and none of the choices are copyright, and you receive 75 million takedown notices a month. Okay, that's crazy. Select, I have found a site that is engaging in suspicious behavior. The page is solely about phishing. Go back. Google will not let me go back. Must start over. Repeat step 11. Select, I have a legal issue that is not mentioned above. I mean, this is incredible. Aha. Removing content from Google is one of the choices. Select. Warns me that they will send my notice to the Lumen Project, formerly Chilling Effects, and my notice will be published for all to see. Really? They haven't even found out what I'm complaining about yet. This is intimidation tactic step number 1. Are you the copyright owner or authorized to act on his or her behalf? Select yes. Select from 2 choices, image, video, and other. To speed things up and avoid yet another menu that will inevitably go with other, so I select video image. Google asks me to yes or no the question, the image video is of yourself. Why this matters, I can't fathom. I have already said I'm the copy owner, so I say yes. DMCA form? Nope, this warning appears. Under U.S. copyright law, a photograph video is generally owned by the photographer videographer, unless the photo was taken as part of his or her responsibilities, blah-diddy, blah-diddy, blah. So this guy goes on to say, but that's not true. What if it's a selfie? Then I'm taking my own photo. So that goes on and on. He hits every dead end. So he goes, let's see, they demand that I provide them a written assignment of copyright or they will not process my request. Intimidation tactic number 2. Since I know better, I ignore this. Click the link for here, request for me to enter my email address. Email address entered, click return. Sorry, Google doesn't recognize that email. Create an account using that address. You have to create a Google account. Okay? Click next in an attempt to bypass. Google will not let me fill out a DMCA form unless I have created a Google account. Creating a Google account will require me to divulge my name, email address, birthday, mobile phone. It goes on, and sign up for all their, purple Kool-Aid. We get to the bottom. So this is what,
that's a list online. Imagine if you had no list and you had to do that all through experience. Imagine how frustrated you would be by step 12 of just.
I have a new assignment for my students. I'm going to give them this. It's just
but this is
whole semester.
so okay. Could any court of law, except maybe one in Washington, when there's probably 3 or 4 buildings of Google lobbyists in this town, could any court of law not possibly look at that and say they really don't want this stuff to come down? I mean, come on, when there is no list of such questions when you put something up, and even if you submit a request and you say, I don't want you to link to that site, or that's a Russian site that's, doing cyber or infringement or whatever, this doesn't even guarantee that link is going to come down. Right. So one of the ideas that I had that I think would be amazing is that, with all these data analytics, they should be able to know, like I've done many takedown requests, and I've never had a counter notification. Nobody's ever argued with it. I should get a high rating. I should be able to do fast track to Google and say, hey, LimeTorrent, bad company. They're infringing my stuff, so that, thousands of other people like myself, millions of other people like myself that have a high rating are given a warning that LimeTorrent is that they immediately take down the URL to that company. I mean, there are things they could do if somebody made them do it.
Maria, what's the ray of hope? There's so much broken. We've had a wonderful a litany of everything that's wrong, and it really is not a good situation for artists.
Well,
is there a way for artists to outsmart the data lords? Is there a way to circumvent? Is there a way to outsmart? Is there a way to...
There are two things that are going on. So one is at the very beginning, I think she said to you something about musicanswers.org, and I want to tell you about that because a group of musicians started this in New York, and I'm a part of it now, and so is Spree. And the idea is that a lot of organizations were representing, rights and advocacy and doing great things, but none of those were really for performers, songwriters, composers, and producers, the people that actually make the music, without also having the record companies and the publishers in there. Even ASCAP and BMI, they've got the publishers, they've got the writers, and there's always this little bit of conflict and competition. So we all have the same, basically the same interests. So we decided to create this campaign and create a declaration of principles. And the Declaration of Principles is basically that people can sign on and say, these are the basic things that we all must agree and adhere to. Transparency. We come together as writers, performers. We oppose practices of video streaming services, internet services, and other businesses that appropriate the value of our music in order to make huge profits selling advertising and data. We believe like music should be treated like, that means performance and composer, that this really should be fair as fair. Transparency, and so people are signing on to this. We have Carole King, we have Herbie Hancock, we have Steve Wright, we have John Cordiano, David Byrne. We have many, many people, and we're trying to get students, and we're creating all sorts of videos to wake people up. So the idea is education, and anybody can sign up. People can sign up as fans, as people in the music industry, to basically get people to say, yeah, this is what we believe in, this is what we want to advocate for, and have this huge list of names, and we're already up to 1,600, and we just got started, and have this huge list of names and videos and things that say, we are watching you. We want better. We expect better. We now know what's going on. We are not going to sleep at the wheel anymore. So if you can't change Congress and you can't change it through law, you can change it through exposure and pressure. And then the other thing that I always advocate for, because it works so much for me, and that is that Artist Share gave me this opportunity to put my music out there, this platform where I can connect with fans in meaningful ways, and Taylor Swift is a big advocate of connecting with fans, and I can tell you for me it works beautifully, in sharing my whole process and everything, and having access to all that data and knowing every person who buys my music, owning my music, not giving away my rights, running my own show, having my own archive of my own work, and I'm able to pay for a $200,000 record in an industry where almost nobody can pay for a $200,000 record, and it's jazz big band. So I always imagine, I look at it, some artists, I look at Taylor Swift, and I imagine her numbers, if she was doing what I was doing, insanely eye-popping. I mean, really.
Well, but you saw when she withheld her music from Spotify, from the free services, and look what happened with Adele. She said no to Spotify,
Yeah.
8 million sales.
Yeah.
So you still can sell.
People buy.
People will buy if they can't get it for free.
Yeah, that's the point. People will buy if they can't get it for free. That's it.
So just say no is one of the
that's true.
takeaways from this. So as a takeaway
Wait,
for all
just
the
one
folks.
I just
second.
wanted to add
sorry.
something. Just like I think also one key component is you have to switch the way of thinking just to people in general, especially for people of my age and generation. It's like you have to understand there's a group of kids from 2000 to 2016 who have grown up and never paid for music in their life. They have no concept of going to a store, buying a CD, taking it home, putting on some headphones, unwrapping the CD, turning the music on, looking at the credits, and vibing out to music.
And
Their
reading
whole-
the liner notes.
Exactly. Their whole idea of what music is almost like background noise. It's like, oh, have you heard that new Drake song, that new Taylor Swift song? We'll play in the background as we get ready for a party. And I just think that you have to change the idea of what music is to people to make them feel like it's something special and not just this thing that they're supposed to have, that it just comes for free, you know, and that's a longer road to get to, I feel like, but it can be done, you know. It's just
I'll tell you this, if there was a financial motivation for that from a company like Google, they would make it happen overnight, because they've managed to change a generation, and once that you know, the dam is broken, that's their idea. Oh, the dam's broken, this is how people get music now. It's like, well,
Yeah.
this is what the damage they've done.
And so it's just awareness, and it's also, I think, making the issue with music being free not just a music issue, but a people issue, a person issue. You know, like when you think about people who aren't getting paid the right amount of wages, you all feel for them. You know, like the idea when I say I got $60 for a song that gets streamed millions of times, I heard the whole crowd just gasp, you know, because how could that happen, you know? Just imagine, like, I think when people think of songs and songwriters and artists, they think about these guys who have millions and millions of dollars, and it's really just 1% of the entire pie who is that successful. For the most part.
1%.
Yeah, for the most part, I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. For the most part, people have worked their whole lives just to live a decent job, just to live a decent life, writing songs. That's all they've ever known, you know. And as the years progress, that likelihood of providing for their family gets taken away from them every day.
Well, and we know from the copyright report, I think we talked about it today, how many songwriters in Nashville have left the profession in the last, I don't know,
It's like 10 years, 12 years.
Yeah.
80%.
This is a songwriter's city. You know, this is a city that was built on songwriting, and to see these people not be able to take care of their family, provide for their household, it's sad. It's really sad, because this is not just a music thing. It's a person. It's a people thing. You know, like just imagine, like you guys are going to your jobs tomorrow, and just imagine your boss comes in and says, "Hey, today you guys are going to be working for free. I'm sorry." That's just or you know what? We're gonna pay you, but we're not gonna tell you how much we're gonna pay you. We're just
Maybe
gonna,
a tenth of a penny an hour.
Yeah.
Actually,
I think your job is worth about 0.4, if give or take, just So
Or it's like going to Congress and saying, "Hey, we just found a way to hack into all your 401ks and give away $15 little things. Everybody here, have a frenzy at it."
Yeah.
And everybody can just pick away and say, "Oh, cool! Wow, I can get $15 from Fahrenheit. Cool! I'm going to take $15 from and they just go around." That's what it is. It's like going. I used to work sometimes with Toots Thielemans, and he used to say when he would announce playing Bluesette, before he'd play it, "This is my Social Security, this song."
Yeah.
It is, your songs are your asset. They're something that should pay you and, your kids, and, for 75 years, it should belong to you, and it should be protected. And you know what? It's in our Constitution. Copyright is in our Constitution.
And this is the home of U.S. copyright,
Yes.
the Library of Congress,
Yeah.
where we are. Thank you all so much for your eloquence on this subject. And I'm just very curious, how many music creators are in the audience tonight? Okay. For those of you who are music creators, as a takeaway, I'm just going to ask, what is one thing, I'm going to ask all three of you, what is one thing that music creators can take away to take home tonight from this panel, that they can do it when they get home to better protect their rights in the digital marketplace? John?
Sure. Well, for one thing, there are lots of different pools of money. And if you've put out recordings and your recordings have been played on Sirius XM, if they've been played on Pandora, if they've been played on any of these streaming services, you want to make sure that you are signed up to collect from all those pools. And so most people know that if they're a songwriter, they have to sign up with ASCAP, BMI, or CSAC. Those are pretty much your three choices. You can self-publish. You don't have to go through one of the PROs, but most people go through one of those three. Make sure you're a member. They collect money from the public performance of your work as a composer for the composition. Sound Exchange, the organization I started 16 years ago now, collects for you as a recording artist and for you as a label owner. Make sure if you own your own masters, if you are the label as well as the artist, that you sign up for both shares. Frequently an artist signs up with Sound Exchange and they only sign up as the artist, not thinking, "Oh, I own the masters, I'm a label owner too," and they leave half the money on the table. And we used to have to track people down when all of a sudden there'd be this pool of money, and we go, wait a minute, you know, we don't know this label. We call the artist and go, do you know who the label is? Oh, I'm the label. So very simply, make sure you sign up as the artist, as the label. If you're a background musician and you play on other people's records, especially if you play on major records, there is a fund that is controlled by the AFM and AFTRA, that's American Federation of Musicians, and now it's SAG-AFTRA, but the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists has an intellectual property fund based in California, and they get 5% of all the money Sound Exchange collects, so about $40 million last year, be probably $50 million this year. And there's also other reuse fees when songs get put in movies, when they get reused for other things. So there's probably well over $100 million a year right now for background musicians and background vocalists if you play on fairly popular recordings. You have to get in touch with them and let them know who you are and where they can find you. So it's really important to let people know. There's another much smaller fund. It's probably $2 to $3 million a year. It's located here in Washington. It's called AARC, the Alliance of Artists and Recording Companies. I used to be on their board. And basically they collect money back when DAT tape was going to revolutionize the world, and we got this law passed that every time blank media would be used to copy things or hard drives. But we got screwed on that, because unlike Europe, where lots of money is being collected in these levies, we don't get hard drives on computers because they're multi-use. We don't get blank CD levies unless it says a music CD, and most people just buy regular blank CDs. But it could be hundreds of millions of dollars if people were actually paying for the media on which they're copying our stuff. So AARC, again, is something that you should look up. I believe it's, well, if you Google Alliance of Artists and Recording Companies, you'll find it.
And Sound Exchange's website is?
Soundexchange.com. And they actually have a
Soundexchange.com.
place on the website where you can actually search to see if you have money. And I just saw a wonderful site called BuzzAngle. And of course, it's way more expensive than you'd ever want to spend. But I found out I had 35 streams on Spotify on my record that has never been digitally released. So I still was kind of mystified till I found out that somebody has been bootlegging it. So I'm owed
go home and
16
join
cents.
Sound Exchange.
I'm owed 16 cents, you know. So.
Spree? Thanks, John.
I just think the biggest way, the most, or one of the ways you can protect yourself is just through awareness, you know? When I was a kid, nobody had any information for me. Like, there wasn't a lawyer to go to, or there wasn't another artist. I literally had to either, it was trial by fire or figure out as I go. So I think for artists and just people who are interested in the subject matter at hand, is just research, awareness. When the article comes out, read it. You know, I know it's a lot of information to take in, and you're not going to figure this whole thing out in a day, maybe not even a year, but the more you keep abreast of it, and the more awareness that you have of how your music is getting out there, what are you getting paid for your music, what are the different avenues to put your music through, I think that will give you much more protection, because you won't go into it so blindly, you know? Like, there's millions of kids who just toss their music on Spotify and have no idea how much they're getting paid, or if they're supposed to be getting paid at all. So I just think that the more you know, as I used to say on the NBC thing, the more you know, the more you'll go in prepared of, you know, how to attack this giant, what is it, the data lords of the music industry.
So, absolutely. I mean, that's what we're trying to do at Music Answers. So I hope that you will go to Music Answers, look at the videos we're making, and you can endorse if you like the Declaration of Principles, and to me there's nothing not to love, you endorse it, sign up, and then, you know, we'll keep you apprised of what's going on and what things are changing. There's a lot of sites you can go to. Music Business Worldwide is a wonderful, just sign up there. Every day articles come in, and just shockers, you know, about the business. It's really good. ASCAP has a wonderful sort of advocacy, you know, they upload all sorts of links and things that are coming out every day, and they're all tools that just help people to know, and I do think the more people that know, and the more people that share and say, you know, this isn't what I think, and are vocal about it, and it puts pressure on these companies to change. I mean, you have to demand transparency and fairness, and, you know.
Thank you. Thank you. You've all been so articulate about all of these issues. Let's have a round of applause for our panel. like to hear from you. What are your questions? Do you have any questions for our highly qualified panelists? Please take a mic and speak into the mic. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Howard Cromwell. I'm actually a Grammy member. Grammy member. It was just how I found out about this. I have a question. You said that the Congress is not doing enough. I know that we have something called Grammys on the Hill every year. I've been going there for the last 4 years. So every year, a lot of politicians, Nancy Pelosi, they all come to this huge major event which is supposed to bring, music performers and lawmakers together, and they all promise that they're going to kind of deal with this problem of copyright infringement and things like that. And it doesn't seem like we're making any progress. It seems like every year, we as the members, we get these emails from Neil and saying, we're going to, tackle this year. Go into your neighborhood, talk to your members of Congress, kind of rally the troops. And it doesn't seem like we're making progress. So why do you think that is?
It's because of lobbying, because it's marvelous that, so you came here for Grammys on the Hill, and it's a great, great event, and it is a wonderful experience to experience all these musicians getting together and getting to have meetings with congressmen and tell them our issues. So I applaud you for doing that, and it's a huge thing, and I think it can make a difference, and it does make a difference. But I also know that in our meetings, I remember Jerry Nadler sitting over his desk and saying, the radio lobby is really strong. Just that giving a little bit of a reality check that these forces and lobbying and, is powerful stuff. And that's why I do think it's so important that organizations like NARIS that are doing things and what we're doing, and all these different organizations, grassroots people, the individuals. I know Jerry Nadler told me that it's the individual stories, the people coming like Spree and saying, I had 45 million views and they sent me a check for $30. He said that those kind of stories mean a lot to them. And so, I guess we just have to keep pushing and trying and hoping and doing everything we can.
I think having been a lobbyist myself for a number of years when I was running Sound Exchange, interestingly, back in 1994, my partner who's here tonight, Tom Carrico, and I were approached by the Recording Industry Association of America to join a lobbying campaign to get a law passed to make broadcasters pay recording artists when they played songs on the radio. And we got our clients involved, and we reached out to other artists that we knew and managers and got people involved. And we had this campaign going to get a full performance right in the United States. And we failed to get that done. We did not get radio stations to pay. But when we went to the digital side during that campaign in 1995, who was our ally? The broadcasters, because they sat there and said, oh, our future competitors who are going to be doing satellite radio and internet radio, all this digital stuff, they're going to have to pay a royalty that we don't have to pay. So because the broadcasters were on our side and these digital services didn't exist yet, we got the law passed. In 1995, the Digital Performance Right and Sound Recordings Act, the first time recording artists in the United States ever were entitled to get paid. And now it's 20 years old. The broadcasters, of course, kind of shot themselves in the foot. They didn't realize, they thought they'd exempted themselves from ever having to pay. But now when they stream online, they do have to pay. So they're a little bit upset because they realize that eventually they'll be streaming online completely. But they make $17 billion a year playing ads around music, and we get zero. Songwriters get a little, but not nearly enough. I mean, imagine if you owned music, and a guy said, I have this brand new invention, it's called radio, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play your songs, amass people listening, I'm going to sell ads, but I'm not going to give you anything because you'll sell concert tickets, you'll sell records, it's fine. I'm going to make $17 billion, but I'm not going to guarantee you anything. That's not a very good deal. You can't even say no. It'd be one thing if you could say, no, I don't want you to use my stuff, but you don't even have the right under US copyright law to say no. As Maria said, there's a broadcaster in every congressional district. If you want to get elected, you need to be on the radio and TV. So that's why the broadcasters are such a strong lobbying force. Congress always said to us when we would come to them, when we almost had a deal in 2010 where the broadcasters finally agreed to pay something, When the broadcasters and you guys come together with a deal that everybody's willing to agree to, we'll bless it. You'll have legislation. That's the only way it'll ever happen. And I think given the power of Google and these companies, that's the only way that'll ever happen, is if the tech companies, you know, and the music industry come together with some sort of a bill that they can.
Just in case some people don't understand this, performance royalty is for the performer. So for instance, Aretha Franklin's been on the radio how many, you know, millions and millions of times. She never got a penny.
No respect.
She never,
Otis got respect because he wrote it.
All right.
but she never got a penny. What are the two countries in the, there's only
No, there's more than a couple, but they're not.
notable ones.
Yeah,
They're
North Korea doesn't pay, Iraq doesn't pay, Sudan doesn't pay, Iran doesn't pay.
But
Pretty much all the other countries in the world pay performers when they play on the radio.
But those countries, the sad part is because it's not reciprocal. Because so in Germany, GEMA, they have a great performing rights organization, GEMA in Germany, because we don't pay their artists when their German artists are on the radio here, because we don't pay them a performance royalty, therefore they don't pay Aretha Franklin's. And so these countries, I know a guy, he said he had a hit down in Brazil with Brazilian musicians, and he was one of the songwriters or performers on it, or it was a hit worldwide or something. His friends, you know, they all made great money. They had like apartments on Copacabana, you know, and this guy didn't get a penny. So it's hurting us internationally.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be interesting to get the international loss of income into the United States from
I
that.
did a little bit of that when we were leading this campaign, and it's hard to totally quantify, but U.S. repertoire, except in certain countries where language issues are pretty major, it's 30 to 50% of the world's repertoire. So when you look at that, the labels get their share, by the way, because remember, when your record comes out in the UK, it comes out on Sony UK. They're a local company, they get paid. The artist, if they're American, is an American artist, they don't get paid. So we estimated somewhere around $100 million to $150 million a year that U.S. artists were losing in foreign royalties. So it's not insignificant when you think about it. And also the other piece that people forget is, you know, it's not all pop music. Europe plays a lot more classical music, they play a lot more jazz. And so it's a lot of really niche music that is losing that money. EDM for years, it's starting to obviously catch up here, but for years there were artists here, there were loopholes. So for example, one of the things I would tell people is go record in London, and if you record in London, then you can get to collect your royalties around the world.
That's exactly what my business manager, he gave me this bit of advice, which enabled me to get a lot more money overseas, which with the Afrojack song, The Spark, because it was a Dutch artist, I was a writer and a performer on the song, I was able to collect all the money that probably would have been withheld from me.
That's why, because you told me that I was asking him about his BMI royalties, and he said the foreign royalties are pretty good, and that's why, because I was a little surprised.
Well, it wouldn't be BMI, it would be your foreign royalties as a performer.
But they're coming through BMI,
They're probably coming through either Sound Exchange, or you might have a business manager collecting
business
directly.
manager, yeah.
Okay.
I actually did that for Cobalt for a while. As a,
I want to get to a few more questions.
Okay, sorry.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Very fully. Thank you.
Hello,
Other
Nelson from,
questions?
Nelson from Altavaz Entertainment. I actually want to follow up with Jerry and what people can do. There is something called the Music Act. Go to musicact.org. And that is supported by Jerry, introduced, and it is supposed to give U.S. record labels up to $1 million a year to make, manufacture, and export U.S.-made music. Why we don't, and I've been going to Grammys on the Hill for 15 years, we don't because we have Halliburtonized the U.S. recording industry. U.S.-made music is not exported out of the U.S. You're not going to make money digitally. Digitally is only a fraction of all the money earned. You have to do both. And we have a Music Act. We need to get people to go. You need to get your local representative to go. Why are we not doing anything supporting our local music? Because Sony, Universal, and Warner Brothers, actually, BMG is back. There are 4 majors. BMG has Janet Jackson, Alabama, Scarface. It's not in the news. But they're back because majors make billions of dollars selling records still. And they're getting everybody else to go play in the digital sandbox that makes micro sense. So you have to do both. The other thing is you need a blockchain. It has to be tied to a public blockchain. And then your rights will all get done out, and we're fighting this out in the industry.
What is a blockchain?
So the blockchain is what this cryptocurrency is. This is a public ledger that would allow all the right holders to have their information promulgated out, and then if someone used it, it's tied to a pair key. So your information goes out, you have a key that allows it to be broadcast, you have a private key that's your information. Say, I want to use it, I get a right, it reports back to you, it would send the payment to him, the songwriter, it would send it to your distributor, to your aggregators, all done.
One place.
But guess who doesn't like that? The established people in our industry. So the indies have to take it back.
Thank you. Other questions?
Yeah, I guess it's, yeah, I've actually got about 10 questions, but I'll start off with one.
Pick your favorite one.
I've watched stuff on YouTube, and I could never figure out, like, first of all, I hate YouTube. I can't understand why you would actually get music from YouTube. Is it just the plays? I mean, like, when people go to YouTube, do they just using it like a radio, like to play it?
To check stuff
Yeah.
out and to just to get to check it out without buying it.
It's on demand too, because they let everything stay up there. They don't take anything down, so you know you'll find everything there.
Because my question was, I'm a photographer, and photography is being destroyed on the internet. It's unbelievable, because if you are represented by an agency, AP or Magnum, they really can't do anything. They do stuff for marquee photographers. The biggest concern isn't so much that photography is showing up on all these websites and nobody can do anything about it. What seems to be particularly irritating to a lot of photographers is that their work is being taken and the individuals are then doing stuff to it and reposting it in some other form that's not what its original intent was.
Analogous to sampling.
And it's just like, when you see it, I mean, I've heard photographers like said, I saw it, that I didn't even know it was mine at first, and I remember, what is this? And that is just, it's maddening. And only the top, I know most people don't know a lot about photography, but like you get some premier photographs, Magnum or AP or Reuters will come down and the lawyers will show up. But for the most part, it's Katie barred the door, whatever.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I actually was involved in some meetings last year with some of the photographic agencies about trying to create a sound exchange like right for photographers, so that basically people could use them online, but there would be charges, on websites, and they'd have to pay percentages of revenue, things like that. And then the pool would come in, and then you'd have to figure out how to it's very difficult, obviously, even more difficult than songs.
Yeah, each agency has their own mechanism, but each one of them is different. It's a different form, it's a different price, but they really say, we don't want you taking the photographs and changing them around. And I guess I'm not 100% sure, because I see a lot of stuff on YouTube. It seems to me like it's like nonsense. Like if I have a daughter and she looks up a Beyonce song, she'll get 30 things that aren't even the things she's looking for.
Right.
And some of them are actually, sometimes they're even pornographic, which I don't know how that's allowed, but.
I mean, it's funny. It's funny you say that, because we talked about we had this conversation about remix culture, and like like your photograph, where somebody takes it and repurposes it. They do the same thing with music. Like I've had songs where somebody had just found an acapella and did a remix and had it on every. It's a repurpose. It's my song, but they repurposed it for their own, like, artistic, I guess, creative choices or whatever. And I don't know if they're making money from it, but it's the same thing. It's so hard to get. It's so hard to have somebody take it down, because it's a remix to. It could be 1,000 remixes to one song, and sometimes you just don't even know how many remixes there are. I've had a song that was remixed 20 times. I only heard like 10. It's just that somebody sent me a paper with all the remixes that someone did the research, but I haven't heard all the remixes, so I just don't know. Like, and it's the same with your photographs. Like, you just don't know how many times somebody has reposted your photograph, especially in the social media age, man, where like I could take your picture and put a filter on it, and then I could distribute it to thousands of people, and somebody else take that same picture and do the same thing. You just have no idea. You know, there's no like I wish there was some kind of like watermark, or they take the watermarks off now too. So it's like I just don't know how you can
get rid of all that.
how you can keep up with any of the artwork or your work. You know.
It's like first grade Photoshop. You
Yeah.
can eliminate all that stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thank you. We have time for one more question.
Hi. Hello?
Hello.
I wanted to sort of get some feedback from you about one of the aspects that I think is under-discussed in terms of the transition from the ownership model to the access model, and that's how it gets talked about in terms of total industry revenues, and I want to talk about how those revenues end up being distributed across different kinds of art. You know, different kinds of music is intended for different kinds of listening. There's pop music, which I love, which is sort of the kind of stuff that you listen to over and over again and kind of can be the soundtrack to your life. And then there's the kind of music that's not for everyone, like big band jazz or the noisy punk rock that I make in my basement. You know, it's never going to be mass audience music in the same way. And it might not be the kind of thing that you return to over and over again for repeat listening over and over again. But the few listens that you do sit down and really take it in, it can be transformative and really powerful artistic experiences. And one of the challenges with the on-demand streaming economics is that it seems set up to reward the kind of pop music, repeat listening over and over and over again over a period of years, at the expense of sort of the art music, the fewer listens, the niche, the little guys. I'm really concerned about whether there's any kind of economic incentive to validate this. I'm excited by what you're saying about building those direct relationships with fans and explaining the economics to them being a means of recourse to counterbalance that. But I'm wondering if you're getting those kinds of feedback from your communities as well.
Well, one thing, so I was talking to a person in the music business in New York just about Spotify and the way they calculate, you know, when there's a $9.99 subscription fee. And I hadn't heard about this before, and I thought it's an incredible idea. He said he feels that if somebody pays if you pay $9.99 per month, and your listening is, you know, big band jazz, and that's all you listen to, and maybe you listen 9 times. He said your $9.99 should be divvied up again to the people that you listen to. And if you're a person that pays $9.99 a month and you listen 5,000 times, you know, to something else, then it gets divvied up by 5,000 times amongst those things. And I think that there is a certain beauty in that, because I think that people would be maybe more likely to pay a subscription fee if they knew that the money actually was going to those people that they listen to. I think that would be a meaningful change and a meaningful step. Now, there are a lot of people that are not going to like that, you know, but I think it would be good and good for the music. And then obviously, you know, I'm just a fan of what I described before for myself. But that little step in the streaming world, I think, could make a difference.
Thank
I mean,
you.
yeah, I think if you think about it, we have the technology to be able to do that. And that's the most
That's
fair way
easy.
to distribute the money.
Yeah.
Based on total plays per user for the fee they pay.
Going to those people. I mean, it's easy to do that. So, yeah, but it's difficult, and this is changing. It is going to change our musical culture, you know, because it is hurting. It is hurting those little niche musics that don't have as big of an audience, and usually that music is the most expensive to record too. That's the irony, you know, the classical music, and it's tough.
Thank you. Thanks for your question.
One more.
I just want to ask one question.
Okay, one more. Let's get you on mic.
Okay. Okay. So it's really quick. And it's kind of pertaining to me, and like if I don't know if I'm on the right direction or not. So I was just seeing maybe if you can let me know if I'm not. But okay, so basically, I'm an aspiring musician. My music name is Rosebud. It's enchanting and captivating music. Bliss, a lot of people say, it gets underneath your skin in a peaceful manner. So I want to know, you know, of course, as a creator of your music, it's like your baby, you know, it's like you created it. So I copyrighted it, like maybe about 3 weeks ago, but I'm hesitant. I don't know if it's me, like, being scared, or it's like, I just want to protect it. But you know how, like, I can go to someone, and they may have a recording studio, and they want to record it. Like, am I going the right way, or should I have, like, documents to show, like, you know, the way to protect it, or this is what's going on, and make it specific in writing?
Are you asking if somebody's recording your song for you?
Yeah, like, I mean, like, should I be putting it on YouTube? Should I be putting it on, like, SoundCloud? I mean, I don't know. I'm very, like, I'm a very critical thinker sometimes when certain, like, stuff like this. So I'm not so, like, quick to jump. So I just want to know.
The first question is, what are you looking for? Like, that would be my first question as an artist. Like, what is your goal with the song? Because sometimes it's not about making money. Sometimes it's just about being heard, right? So
right.
if SoundCloud's the way for you to get heard, you know, that might be an outlet, or it might be what Maria said. Like, she has a platform where you can put your song out, or it may just be a personal agreement with you and whoever you're recording the song with. But I think the first thing you should ask yourself is, like, what is my goal with this song? What is my goal with this music? And then I think that can guide you into whatever direction you're going in, you know? Like, everything else is just about research, you know? Like Spotify, how much they'll pay you, SoundCloud or whatever, but it's just asking yourself, like, how do I want to get this music heard? Like, what's the best platform for it? And I think everything else will guide you after that.
And I also think that thinking ahead, because you're just starting out. If I was just starting out right now, my goal would be building my own career. Mm-hmm. And if you throw your stuff, I think you want to pick those things that you want to get out there as a magnet, but then you want the things that you preserve. There's a new thing that's just starting now. It's called fanfunded.com. It's basically like artist share light that anybody can do. But the beauty of it is that you will build your own audience. You will know who they are. You can contact them. You can share things with them, and you can build a career. So the idea isn't just making that first record or doing those songs and necessarily on that first one making all your money back, but then maybe your next one builds, the people get to know what you're doing and you know who they are. Then when you do your second record, you already have this many people. You can send out an email and say, hey, or a note, or however they're going to communicate. You know, I'm now going to fund another record, or I'm going to create a single, or I'm going on a trip here and I'm writing music about this. Come follow along, you can help fund it, or whatever. And building it so that you have your own little empire at the end. Because otherwise, they will suck you dry. You know, it's very difficult these days. I think it's very important. Ownership is everything.
Yeah. And I think Maria makes a really good point, which is one of the problems with some of these big streaming services is that they don't tell you who the people are who are listening to you.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the most valuable data, is having that relationship with that fan, having their email address, knowing who they are, knowing what they like, you know, and because that way you have a direct relationship, you can monetize it, or you can give it away for free, but you have a community. I think that's important.
Yeah. Sometimes it's just about putting those breadcrumbs out there, like she says. Like, she has a wonderful platform. It's like, put the breadcrumbs out there and then direct them to your own platform where you can be the beneficiary of.
Build it and it will
whatever.
come.
Yeah.
Slow and steady is, you know, slow and steady, and being good to your fans. That is, you know, creating a real relationship of trust and respect is a huge part of it.
Thank you. I want to say a big thanks to all our panelists, Maria Schneider, Spree Wilson, John Simpson, for being with us tonight. Thanks also to the music division folks who planned this panel and all the events in Maria's week-long jazz residency, Ann McLean, Nick Brown, David Plyler. We'd also like to thank our sound engineers, Mike Turpin and Jay Kinlock. Thank you very much. And videographer Tom Wolf, thank you. Before we go, I just want to let you know about one more upcoming event. The concert is sold out, so we can't invite you to that. But Maria has an upcoming workshop this Saturday, April 16th. That's at 2 o'clock. It runs from 2 o'clock to 4 o'clock, and it's in our beautiful Coolidge Auditorium in the Jefferson Building, the one with the big dome. Maria will be working with members of the Bohemian Caverns Jazz Orchestra and the Levine Music Premier Jazz Combo. And both of the groups will perform, and then Maria will give them some coaching and some feedback in a workshop style environment. But the workshop is free of charge. So seating is first come, first served, but there's loads of room in the Coolidge. It's a big auditorium. So we're hoping to see you there this Saturday at 2 p.m. in the Coolidge. And I want to thank you all so much for coming out tonight. Thank you very much.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.